Good afternoon and welcome into the first episode of Coach is Speaking. I have redeveloped or I'm relaunching my new podcast. So hopefully you're able to tune in and I am able to create some value for your future, serving you through community service content. And this is my first episode with the relaunching of my show. The old show was Rise Above Potential. This new show is called Coach is Speaking, so I'm excited to get with you today. I'll be upfront with you. I'm a little upset. I had done an entire show. I was in a good 30 minutes, and then the platform provider, when I went up to check the status of the show, and it said there was an internal error. So I was speaking on camera for at least 30 minutes, and I did not know it. And that's okay. Part of the journey, part of getting in those reps, part of life, right? If everything was perfect and grand, then we wouldn't have so much growth, right? And part of growth is dealing with those challenges. And so I have to redo the show. And I could complain about it, I could be upset, I could pack up and let that beat me. And I'm not. And so for today's episode, the episode is about why leadership is lonely, and loneliness of leadership, and what does that mean, and what does that look like? And to be transparent, leadership is tough. And I posted on my social media today, I have no interest in being a hero to anybody. I have no interest in leading anybody. My sole purpose is to help coach you on the vision that God has given me for me to help you become the best version of yourself possible, to coach people on vision and to help create independent thinkers. And so the way to create independent thinkers is working through what this looks like as a leader. And I believe the best thing that leaders can do is develop other leaders, right? And help you formulate your own thoughts and opinions about life. And so whenever I did the first episode, there's a ton of nuggets, and so I'm going to have to remanufacture. I may even look over at my notes just to kind of keep me aligned, because it does take a lot out of you to record something, put there's a connection to the work, right? As an artist and a creator. And so, it is frustrating, because now it's like, okay, how do I re-muster that delivery for you? And maybe it was it's the timing to get better, right? And it's the opportunity to get better, an opportunity to work on my speech and improvement. And there was a lot that I discussed in that video, and it's one of those things where when you look at the tape and you run the tape back, right? The thinking into doing, whenever I'm flowing with the concepts, I don't want to have to start over, and then you're fighting your different thoughts and opinions. So, now I'm having to look back and reflect on the 17 years of coaching over again, right? And tell the stories and get my focus around what does it mean to be in this leadership position. And, if I could go back and start over and coach myself, I would tell myself to chill out. There was a lot of days where, I was leading from frustrations, I would say. And I think now I give myself permission to rest, reflect, and think. I believe any person in leadership, or if you're striving to become anything, learn to rest, learn to reflect, and, give yourself room to allow the downloads to happen, to allow your observations to happen, and to really think. And if I could challenge any person, it is the thinking component. And it's the ability to sit down and say, okay, where are we headed? And, whenever I made the first video, couple things that leaders need to do. You need to set direction, and you don't need to micromanage your people. Allow your people to explore and allow them to, make mistakes, and allow them to develop through those mistakes. And that's the characteristics of leadership, right? And I believe, when I coach basketball, and I know this, that I allow my players to run the team. And I know one time I had one of my players goes, well, coach, why didn't you? Oh, he looked at my players, he goes, are you guys the managers or something? And, he was a new player that hadn't been a part of the team. And my players pulled him to the side and said, coach really prefers us to lead, us to be the the people that are managing the team. And the reason why that is critical is because these players are eventually going to be the next leaders and husbands and fathers. And so, when you're dealing with life and you're studying life, it's important to say, okay, where are we headed? Where are we going? For me, being an athletics director and an educator and head boys basketball coach, I often get, I feel the energy of people saying, well, what's he doing? And people are so invested in the things that I'm doing. And it's like, well, you should be doing your thing. This is me showing you doing this is your permission to go out and develop a studio, right? And develop your own thing and to create content and build your own personal brand and developing independent thinkers. I know the government really doesn't want us to be independent thinkers and thinking for ourselves and doing our own thing. And I know people are like, oh, why are you so, I'm not anti-government. It's just these corporations and these things, we have to develop our own thought. We don't need to be docile. Turn me off. Go create your own thing. Go write a book. When I first wrote my book, Just Do Your Job, Unlock the Potential Within, the purpose of the book and the focus of the book was to create, a direction and help people to slow down. And whenever you look at the setup of the book, it's called an action book. And so I'm actually writing my second book, Rewriting What's Possible, Why People Don't Stop Long Enough to Change. And it's going to be important. It's going to be a critical thing. It's taken me a long time to get my mental health back to be in a position to want to start doing my podcast again and having conversations and learning to develop myself for a thing and community service content. And I'll be honest with you, it is going to be really tough for me to do the secondary episode because there's so much nuggets in the first one. And it's like, man, I didn't get to write those down. And it's okay. Setting direction. How do we set direction for your life? And first, you got to have a vision for what you want your life to be. Where do you want to go? What do you hope to accomplish? For me, creating a studio, my thing is setting a direction for the studio, helping other people tell their stories. Really, this is about a third place to create and a place that allows other people to come and build their platform and their stories and help share their stories and tell their stories. And that is the biggest thing, whenever, like I said, when I coach basketball, I'm not looking to micromanage my players. I set the direction, I set the course. If they don't want to go out and get better, they don't want to improve, then there's not much that I can do in terms of forcing them to. All I can do is cultivate the culture and the standard of saying, this is where we're going, this is where we're headed, these are the expectations of you, this is what I expect from you, and then to work from that. And if they do it, great. If they don't, I do my part. And my part is to set the environment. Leaders, your job is to set the environment and drive the vision, right? It's not to micromanage. Don't micromanage your people. Nobody likes to be micromanaged, and then talk to your people, build relationships with them. Find out what they're about. Find out the things that they're looking to do and they're hoping to accomplish with their lives. I spend a lot of time talking to my players about, what are they hoping to accomplish and, what are the things that they're looking to as they get older. And a lot of times these players don't have any earthly idea of what they want to do, right? And it's okay. And I hope that through my podcast and through the media company that I'm developing, that they'll have an idea or they'll develop themselves for a thing, or they find out that they have a love for engineering, I don't know, writing books, being an actor, being a doctor. There's so many things that we can do, right? And there's so many things that we can become as individual people that it takes a relentless effort, right? It's a relentless effort. You see I'm fudging with this pocket because it's bothering me, right? That's it, like that fidget. You got to fidget. The reason why I'm fidgeting is I was frustrated. And so because I'm frustrated, I had to get my mind wrapped around and I had to zone back in to getting the job done, right? Regardless of how I feel, I have to get the job done. I have to get this content. I have to stop procrastinating. I have to get the job done. So, that's part of being an athlete. It's, Nick Saban said it best. Discipline is doing the thing you're supposed to do and not doing the things you don't want to do. The thing that I wanted to do was pack up, go home, and not record the content. But I'm here, and I'm 10 minutes in. And so it's like, oh my gosh, how long am I going to have to speak in front of this camera again in order to get the job done? And I'm clocked into work. And so this is my work. Whenever I'm freestyling content, that's the lifestyle content, right? And so a guy said it earlier today, he's like, it's a T, the top of it is your lifestyle content, and STEM is the thing that you're really good at, the thing that you're niched in, right? And my niche is basketball coaching, leadership, and I really don't, I hate it. I hate those terms. I hate being boxed into that, because of what it allows people to set you up for, whether they say it to you personally or conversations that they have behind closed doors, is that you're coaching, you're held to this high standard, and they're allowed to bring you down and bring you up based off how you feel, how they feel about you, right? And so, I had a conversation with a guy who is a manager at a local restaurant. He goes, man, my kids, tell me stories about how he used to be, and blah blah blah. I'm thinking to myself, I was 23 at the time, and a 23-year-old leader compared to me at 35 is two totally different people. And when people find you on that journey, they forget, right? They forget that you're growing and developing like they're growing and developing. And this is why it's important to be yourself as a leader. This is why it's important to not play the politics game and not play the favorites game, because, if you're allowed to be propped up based off how people feel, then you'll never get the job done. You might as well be the local ice cream vendor. And, the more I think about this and I reflect on what I'm doing, it's frustrating, right? Because you're creating content and you're being inspired through your life, and people take that as facts. Like, oh my gosh. Like, it's interesting to me when you're walking a journey, and this is why leadership is lonely, because, if I post on, if people are so enamored by you doing a thing, right? And it's like acting, or it's like developing a live show. You're using it as your script for inspiration, but it's not your life, right? And I love playing chess, and that is my happy place. I like to get on my phone and listen to music and play chess and then be left alone. And, with me developing my podcast, it's, do I do the thing that everybody else is doing? Or I have the opportunity to be different. This is what I said in my coaches meeting at the beginning of the year, and I'll say it in our coaches meeting again on Tuesday and Thursday, is we have the opportunity to be different. We don't have to do it like everybody else. I don't have to do my podcast the way everybody else is doing it, because that's what Stephen Bartlett is doing, or whoever these guys' names are, or whoever these big name people are. And they've done a fantastic job. But I have to walk in my lane and my niche and the things that I've done. And, it's taken me a long time to be okay with, okay, that's just not my lane. I'm not the business guy. I'm not making the $1 million that I would like to. I'm not making the 6 figures that I would like to. My podcast isn't producing, because I hadn't really put emphasis and focus on it like that. And I didn't really know what direction I was going. And, now I have a clear direction and focus. I'm saying, okay, I can see the end goal. I can see the pathway. I see how this vision is coming together. And it does take time. It's not a snap of your finger and the things happen, right? And so finding my flow again, not just getting on in front of the camera and just ranting, but actually providing value for the viewer at home, and understanding the way of the world, and understanding that YouTube is a huge, huge opportunity to build my platform, and also learning to create value for the marketplace. And, it's hard for me sometimes because I'm in the thick of it. I am living my lifestyle, right? And so to me, it goes, am I making an impact? I think every leader deals with that. Am I making an impact, right? Am I moving the needle forward, right? And part of being leadership, and like I said, I don't really care to be your leader or anybody's leader or your hero. I definitely don't want to be your hero, because people love to see heroes fall, right? I'd rather be the villain to say, do your singing job, man. Whether you like my tone or not, like we all have a job and function that needs to get done, and it needs to be done. I'd rather be that person that you don't want, right? But you honor and you respect the execution and the action. And when I say, hey, I'm going to build the studio, then I built the studio, and I'm building out contracts, and there's a lot that I need to do. And I'll be honest with you, I've been drained because I understand how much time and effort and energy it's going to take. It's not as simple as, okay, we're in here, let's record, let's turn the lights on. No, it's a lot of thought goes into what am I building? What does this look like? What is the opportunity that I have in front of me in order to become a business owner of a studio? And, it's a grand opportunity. We have one of the greatest opportunities in the world if others want to be the best that they can be. And I know it seems hard, right? And I look at it all the time. It's like, man, how in the world do these people break through the marketplace? Well, I just haven't been myself, right? And I'm going to challenge you to be yourself. And this is why leadership is lonely, because, you see this person over here, you do this. And it's true when it says comparison is a thief of joy. It is absolutely true. And understanding that being yourself, and that was my biggest thing, is just being comfortable in my own skin. And Nipsey Hussle said it best. Would you rather be at peace with the world and war within yourself, or would you rather be at war with the world and peace with yourself? And I'm getting to the point in my life where I just want to be at war with the world and inner peace with myself, and not in a bad way. I don't mean it like military type stuff. I'm just saying, I'm just not putting up with things, right? If this is the most powerful thing in the world, it's so powerful that these tech lords and these scientists think that they can duplicate the human brain, and AGI is going to be so much smarter than humans and all this other stuff. And it's like, okay, it's really not. Because if they were onto something, why do they need to use human intelligence? Why do they need to use human history? Why do they need to chop up books and feed it into the machine if the machine was going to be so much greater than the collection of human civilization? Now, can it synthesize the information without losing focus? Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be it's going to be able to go to work for 24/7. It's not going to be able to sleep. They can have their techno robots, AGI, whatever whatever their agenda is, right? And I'm not getting into it, but I'm just saying is, why would you wait for a tool to tell you how to live your life? Why would you wait for these billionaires who are not even on ground zero anymore tell you how to live your life? And that's where we need independent leader thinkers. Leaders who are independent thinkers, right? In developing my podcast, my target audience really is former athletes and sports fans, right? And leaders, and helping leaders lead their teams. How do we help take your organization from where it is to where it's going, right? In society, honestly, interesting, and social media works. Your scorecard is how much money you generate, right? And so I'm going to have to generate some ads and revenues, and I'm going to have to really figure it out, because that's the only way they'll actually give you any form of respect, is if you produce $1 million podcast show or you make $100K podcast show. That's the only way that they'll actually listen. And so it sounds vague, but it's the truth. Like, look at all of the way people operate in terms of on social media. It doesn't matter if a guy is going to post content for free and coach people for free to help others. That doesn't matter. What matters is you have $1 million in it. And if you study world history, you would be amazed and shocked at how world conquerors and leaders have actually developed. And so you really need to find your own type of trade or your own type of voice. I remember one time I was talking to the former mayor of the town that I live in, and I saw him, and he asked me, he said, when are you going to run for mayor? And I said, I'm not really interested in running for mayor. I am interested in the skills and the behaviors and the habits to be mayor. And I asked him, I said, if you were teaching me and you were coaching me on this, what would you tell me? What would sum it up? And he goes, have something to say, right? And so my thing is having something to say is set the direction. What's your vision? Don't micromanage your people. Leadership, taking my leadership and turning it into content and niching it down. And, I've been coaching since I was 18 years old. And, it's so hard when you're hustling and grinding and you're trying to prove yourself that you get to a point where you're like, oh, I do make it, and I need to step back, and I need to step out of the picture, and I need to review the film, I need to review the tape. I feel like the last 17 years has been a continuous journey, and we're finally hit a road bump, partially because my exhaustion, I didn't rest, I didn't let the downloads happen, and now I'm excited. I'm excited to see where my studio goes. I'm excited to see where my school goes. I'm excited to see where my academy goes. I'm excited to see where my family goes, right? I'm excited now. I have that fervor for life back. I have that enthusiasm because I took time to rest and sleep and slow down and smell the roses and to live a life and to enjoy that. And there's some days where I'm frustrated with life and that's okay, right? So my question to you is, are you okay? Right? Have you found yourself being voluntold that you're going to be a leader, or you're a leader right now, or you're a team, or you're part of a team? Every person that's a part of a team is a leader in their own way. And interestingly enough, learning to develop as a leader is to be able to follow other people. There's some days where I just need to step back and, as a leader, be able to be led and to be able to think independently. And sometimes it's not saying nothing at all. And I've learned that. And, it's gotten me far. And I'm excited about where the Fordex Media Studios can go, the Hidden Brands Podcast Network. This podcast is coaches speaking. Listen up. Athletes, listen up. Sports families, walking them through the journey. And so for me, I'm going to talk about the leadership part of it, right? Leading teams, leading an organization, leading an academy, and then talk about the different experiences from, working in corporate America to education, to working in insurance, working in small mom and pops organizations, developing myself as a content creator. There's a lot that's happened in the 17 years. You don't realize it until you slow down or they used to term burnout, I guess is the best way to put it. And for me, I'm thankful and I'm excited. I'm blessed and thank God, thank Yahweh that I'm here. And I have connections with people that has me in this beautiful studio. And if anything else, I did it, right? I made the vision come to reality. I executed on the opportunities and I didn't wait. I didn't wait and sit on it, and when I first got into the studio, I didn't know what this was going to look like. Now I have a good idea of how I want this to go, what I need to do with the funding, what I need to do to establish the overall architecture of what we are establishing. And if I get that piece right, everything else will come together, right? And I still have my heart set on becoming Dr. Ford, and I have a dissertation. And my dissertation is going to be the end game of leadership, how to optimize human performance. And what does that look like, right? Sure, using AI is going to be a critical piece and component to that. But it's studying great leaders, and it's studying great speakers, and it's studying the grandma that that's been leading her family, and the mom that's been leading her family. That is hard work, and there's a lot of great leadership qualities in that. And I commend those women and those dads and those people who take on the role to be a father, a husband. I had a conversation with someone the other day, and they were asking about how do you do this thing as a father and being in a serious relationship. And I was like, dude, this is all the things you need to go. And I was like, I'm gonna have to charge you, right? And because I want him to understand that you have to invest in yourself too. I think oftentimes, I see us just okay with okay, right? And it's okay to be okay, right? And so, wow, I actually did it. I zoned out there. I absolutely zoned out, and I just got to work, and it just started flowing. Thank God that He renewed my energy there to deliver the message. My message to you is walk in your identity, right? You are created. You were created by and in the image of Yahweh, the living God, right? And so take this Take this opportunity to run with it and become the best you possible, and understanding that if you don't take anything else from today, understanding that yes, leadership is lonely if you make it about you. Leadership is fulfilling if you make it about your people, right? And don't get me wrong. Yes, you need to be prepared as a leader for things to happen. You need to be rested. Your best weapon as a leader is to rest, reflect, think. Those are the three tools I'm going to leave you with. Rest, reflect, think. Write it down. Don't try keeping it all in your head. Get you a group of people you can chat with. You're not alone. Even though it feels lonely, you're not alone. There's a lot of people, if you start having conversations with other people, they are dealing with and struggling with the same issues. And so, coaches speaking, I'm going to talk about leadership. I'm going to talk about leading teams and leading yourself and those tools and why resting is important. The ability to reflect, the ability to slow down. And my second book is Rewriting What's Possible, Why People Don't Stop Long Enough to Change. And, I'm living out rewriting what's possible right now because there's so much to life that is critical. Okay, so that has been my long form content for today. I hope you got some evergreen content from this. There's some clips that you can use. And, it's not the sexy media production, right? But I got to start somewhere. I have to start somewhere. If you want the goofy and all the other stuff, that's my freestyling content. That's my lifestyle content. But whenever I get in front of this camera, when I'm doing my podcast, it is to teach, it's to lead, it's to serve the community at scale, and that other content is so because people want to develop a relationship. This here is to teach you and help grow you and help grow your brain. And yes, it's not an AI tool that's trying to tell. It's ironic, right? They want to sell us AI to be this, and it's not. And so I challenge you. Read, write, speak. Turn the camera on, speak. Turn your camera on. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. You can catch me on all my socials. All of it is Coach Ford Speaks on X, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Coach Ford Speaks. But this podcast is Coach is Speaking. Okay? And so I'm excited. I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see you grow and develop. I also wrote a book called Just Do Your Job, Unlock the Potential Within on Amazon. I do not get the client information. So if you do order the book on Amazon, please, 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 please email me or DM me and let me know. Give me feedback. It does tie to my Vidre Prime doc. And I haven't done much with that because I really took on too much, which is fine. It's all going to come together. Slow down, read, write, reflect, think. Those are your tools as leaders. Slow down, read, write, reflect. But then once you do that, take massive action and execute. Have a good night. Day.